as we get to the final Game 12.
And here we go again. Don't forget, we'll have 7 matches today. And for those of you who are just tuning in, whether it's your first time, we'll be explaining a bunch of things. But what you need to know right now, that #1 spot, they talked about it at the top of show, the best of the best, arguably one of the strongest and most talented trios in the entire world. And they've shown it so far through the first 5 games in Europe, is coming out of Stark Industries. It's E11 Tayson, FaZe Mongraal, and Liquid Metro, and they have had this place wire to wire the entire time. Anybody who has come here basically gets forced in having to 50-50 one of those henchman chests. Otherwise, they just force you out, and they're doing it again.
The only person that's literally contesting, and he has to, is Iron Man. And Iron Man is getting destroyed by the Thanos of the Fortnite world, and that is the Big Grawl and Mongraal. And what's the most interesting thing is when I tuned into Mongraal's Twitch stream after this incredible day 1, he was in creative, free building to stay sharp. That's the champion's mentality. There's no celebrating. They still know they have a job to do. Mission is not complete. And what was a really sweet moment, so to speak, and I know that may be a strange thing to say when you mention Mongraal, but a really sweet moment was that he was asking for a prayer from his community. He said, look, I'm performing at my best. My mates are performing at their best. I 100% believe that he will be the Fortnite champion at the end of the day and that he will come out on top. That was a very touching moment to tune in to Mongraal's stream. So this trio right here, everybody has their eyes on. Everybody in the Twitterverse, the Fortnite fam, was wondering how they would perform. And so far, Sundown, nobody's contesting them. So nobody's going to step up to the challenge to slow down this train.
And largely we've seen this is kind of beneficial to them. Again, we've talked about the stats over and over again, how this team is almost reliant on Mongraal staying up on his feet. He is the one who makes the plays. He accounts for so many, not only of their eliminations, but also just his number of them. He outweighs so many other trios. I think he out-eliminated 85% of the other trios, or I think 82 going on there.
An insane
but
amount.
If he goes down early, it's so incredibly difficult for them. Tayson and Metro being strong players in their own right, but aren't necessarily able to convert when he ends up missing. And one thing we talk about, just how good Mongraal and Metro are, but if you go back and actually look at their tournament results, outside of Cash Cups, their last quote-unquote signature wins, Mongraal shared the love, March 2019. Metro, baby, we're going all the way back to the fall of 2018. Week 3 fall skirmish, to that shockwave play that shocked the entire world. When he threw it on the ceiling, sent himself downward, it's kind of the first time we've seen kind of one of those aggressive shockwaves through the builds. But other than that, Tayson is the one who's had kind of the more recent major tournament victory royale experience. And Mongraal and Metro are kind of missing that trophy on the shelf. And today, will it be their day?
It can be, or can a new trio on the scene, Wolfies, Kinzel, CRR, who were able to get a victory royale on day 1, and in the opening frame, game 1, they had a strong performance. It was a very chaotic ending in Retail Row. You saw them box fight their way through at the very end, fighting on the low ground, being so aggressive, and they were able to take away that first opening victory royale. But we did see in game 2, they were driving around here on top of the Hydro Dam. One sniper shot their way, kind of sent them going down a very downward spiral. Inconsistency so far for the day 1. Let's see if they learned their lessons going into game 2. But here we are. There's still a lot of top talent here competing. There's still a lot of money up for grabs here. So even though we're going to keep an eye on course on the top of the board, we're always going to see the other big names in the region trying to compete and kind of accrue literally every elim, every placement point. We're talking about thousands and thousands of dollars on the line.
And again, too, you can see right now we've yet to have a trio drop only one player. You can see that in the top left corner of your screen. 98 out of the 99 available players still on their feet. 33 trios remaining, so probably going to get a little bit of aggression here on the north side of upstate New York. We saw plenty of this yesterday, but right now, Chapix, Queasy, and Milan, aka EP Alexa, you can see right away Shockwave coming out, and Pablo Wingu trying to create a little bit of space here, but they're not going to give him even a moment to breathe. Second Shockwave being used from the Enterprise Gaming player, and he's going to find Pablo there. Shakedown as well to try and identify where the other two teammates are, make sure they get the max damage coming through to indicate the Storm Surge, and a good pickup there.
That's not the first time that Pablo tried to kind of poke the bear there in a very strong trio. He did that as well in day one with Mongo's trio, and they paid the price. So it's so interesting as well to keep you up to date in the feed. Mr. Savage's trio is getting a knock against that dual media trio as well. So that fight, that engagement that in Doom's Domain is still popping off here. So we've been seeing, though, in different regions, Sundown, is that sometimes this Craigie Cliffs trio, as you see in Milan's trio, sometimes could push that fight and be wondering. I think what we're seeing here is this Milan trio is picking on the scavenger routes versus going against a power POI like Doom's Domain, like the NA East Zexros of the world.
Which I think is the right decision, and we talk about these scavenger routes. That's when you're not landing at one of the named places on the map, and you're just trying to get an aggregate number of chests and whatever loot. Generally, you're also utilizing the fishing pools because there is a solid amount of weaponry that you can pull from there. We've seen the clips of people pulling those epic and legendary pump shotguns, as well as just key fish at the right moments. But being able to pick up 3 points there, each elimination being worth 1, and that will be our first trio going down on the day here in match number 6.
Milan's trio was coming into 24th place, so on the bottom half of the board, they had about 23 points, got about 10 elims. Their average placement, though, is about 18 plus, so they're looking to turn that around. And this is the only trio that right now, at the moment, is in striking distance. It is Anilix, Yanis, and X-Wheeze. This is also a very decorated trio. Z kind of mentioned it at the top of the show. Duos champion, a solo champion in Yanis as well. Anilix is that duos champion. X-Wheeze is the only one looking for that trophy to add to the mantle. And already, Stir 6 getting fully confirmed in the Elim feed. That was another up-and-coming team. But I gotta say, that lead, yes, it's only 30 points, but that's a Victory Royale plus 5 Elims. It's gonna be very tough for Anilix, Yanis, and X-Wheeze to kind of bridge that gap. Because all Mongrel, Mitro has to do, and Tayson, is just keep the pace. Get to in-game. You know, don't kind of take any aggressive fights. Make sure they're standing on their feet to accrue those placement points. And that is why that lead difference is going to be very difficult. I know we've been talking about it, Sundown, is that, you know, they're very inconsistent and they take some crazy fights. But I'm thinking they learned their lesson. And that's, you know, I believe that Tayson is, like, finally, they're believing in what Tayson's leadership is. And Tayson's being a very, like, super gorilla glue there and holding that trio together.
Well, and it feels like all Mongrel really needs to do is to be able to just rein himself in a little bit. You can tell when he gets that red in his eyes, wants to go forward just like the charging bull that he is. But right now, CRR finding a huge headshot there with the Stark Industry rifle. We talked about the first shot accuracy reset on that being very, very, very quick, and they're going to be able to get a little piece of kind of this third-party action. We saw Stir 6 get taken down early, and they're using the palm blast there from the Sentinels to be able to send them forward. You get a nice little redeploy going off, and you can roughly control the direction because it's based off of where the hand is facing. But right now, using that to try and close the gap here. However, the revive is coming through, and it doesn't look like they're able to identify where Smudge is right away.
Wolfie's trio and Co., they came right now into this match at 6th place. So they're coming in within the striking distance. They just got to string together a couple of strong games. And you're seeing here their box fighting skills as they pick up a knock on Smudge, who did get a knock on Stir 6 here. So Stir 6 trio is around this area if there's all the way up. So it's going to be interesting to see what Kenzo Wolfies did. They could get a strong start. They had a good start in day 1, getting that Victory Royale. Nice. Wolfies with the confirmation right there with 2 elims, looking really, really solid. I'm expecting this trio to start picking up elims, considering that is what they do best. Their average placements is about 12th place. The average elims is sitting at 3. No doubt this trio could do a lot more work, but it was that game 2 goose egg that really did hurt their stride, and we have to avoid those goose eggs going forward. So if you're on top of the board, you don't want any zeros. You don't want to get knocked out before that 17th place threshold. You want to keep doing what you do, and that is what Benji and Savage now they have to do. Now there's no Lechi, so that's going to be a duo moving on. So, it's going to be so much riding on the line for this to keep up the pace that they're sitting in 3rd place at the moment.
Yeah, and they've had a tough time coming out of Dooms recently. We saw the dual media pressure come onto them, Lechi getting confirmed, but generally you've seen them be very good at prioritizing getting the reboot and then remaining 3 up. However, not quite able to get that over either, as they only got 2 eliminations, so seems like a little bit of a split fight out of Doom, but decent loadout right now on 100 Thieves. Mr. Savage there, you can see, also has the epic sniper rifle to help contribute kind of towards the picks. And so far today, we're seeing a little bit of a slower match. We're going to have 21 players threatened by Storm Surge. You can see the damage threshold warning there on the right-hand side. Luckily, these guys off of the contest are 890 above. Now, if you are new to competitive Fortnite, Storm Surge is actually active in every single game, even the regular squads and solo lobbies, but it only triggers when you have a certain density of players. The current threshold when the second zone closes and we go to zone number 3, the number we're looking for is 70. So the 21 players who have done the least amount of damage to their opponents will be put under that Storm Surge pressure. It does 25 damage every 10 seconds. So while you can use utility to out-heal it, generally it makes you go aggressive.
And there you see the dual meter trio in the background there. But just to give you an idea how important Lecce has been in these grand finals, he is currently leading the way if elims. So now they're missing that. They are kind of spreading that workload almost evenly, 7, 8 respectively for Benji's and Savage. But they've been the only trio that's been fully all the way up. Like, they spend the most time as a trio. So this is going to be one of the rare times in these grand finals that Benji and Savage got to go as a duo. So they're truly putting in that team effort, and the results are speaking for themselves considering that they're in 3rd place. But you can see that the injury that's been caused by that dual Mia trio out in that distance here, they're basically 2v2. You're just seeing that, a contested Doom's Domain could just leave you, yes, you get that opportunity to get that power weapons, opportunity to get those loots, but at the end of the day, man, you're going into these dangerous zones injured.
And you can see Squeeze picking up eye drop there. He's going to get the confirmation there. Matzo's getting busy on top of these guys as Savage actually eats a bunch of bullets in the back. I think that was either the dual media or one of the other teams who's kind of posted up on the side there. They're going to work along this bottom side tunnel here, but they need to be conscious of the fact that they don't have a ton of white heals outside of the chug splashes, and largely they want to save those for endgame scenarios or when both of them need them, if possible, because now it's just going to be effectively wasted as they're thrown against Benji there. And you can see Savage has a player at his back as well, hopped into the box, but they're not paying attention to what Benji is brilliantly done there to get the first conversion. That's largely going to be Storm Surge pressure, but above them, raining down shots on the Centric, ADN, and the Train Hard duo, Matzo and Amplify. But Benji going to be able to clean up one. Savage gets the other, and a nice pickup for them there. 4 points so far, but Savage, man, very little white HP.
And if Savage gets tagged here a bit, that's going to be the green light for any trio to kind of jump on down. And just looking at it right here, it's like once you kind of leave your main power POI, the question is, where are we going to find a replenishment? And considering right now, there's literally zero or minimal opportunities to kind of farm up, you're going to have to get it from another trio. And when you're in shambles like Benji and Savage are, that's going to be so difficult. Yes, they get a little brief refresher. They find their little moment of oasis, but that could be soon a mirage going forward for the rest of the ride here in this opening game in day 2. This is the grand finals. This is the FNCS Trios. At the end of the day, we will crown an FNCS Trios champion, and that's going to be awesome. And they're going to collect $111,000, wield the Axe of Champions, and gain the ultimate respect of being a champion.
And are currently on board here. They were 5th coming into the day. Solari, Floki, and then Rams Clement and Nakos, the French trio, being absurdly consistent during their heats and having a good start to the day yesterday, but 2 really waffling games there. Games 3 and 4 made it tough and kind of allowed for the top of the leaderboard to separate themselves out a bit. Now, one thing about this trio in particular is they're a little bit more aggressive on average than any other trio in EU. They generally will pick up their first eliminations around 8.5 minutes in, which is more so than a lot of the other teams. So despite being uncontested, they're more than comfortable to go out and not only get tags, but look for confirmations. And one thing I want to note, we went from 91 players to 66 players in that nice little spurt there. So the Storm Surge driving plenty of action and plenty of points being doled out, but it's all in the form of those eliminations because the placement points won't come through until we have our top 17 trios.
It's the same thing that we saw in NA East in their day 1, which was a fantastic cast covered by Ozzy Antics and Monster D-Face. All those players in the NA East region were playing so tight to the chest. They were making sure that every build mattered and every peak mattered, every edit mattered, and we were seeing those crazy Storm Surge, or I remember like 5 minutes will pass and everybody will still be alive and up and running. As we've seen in the feed, Analyx gets a confirmation on Vettel, so Vettel, iDrop, and Stir6 are out. Benji is still cooking up right there, going against Carrot, a new star that kind of prop up on the scene in the FNCS Invitational as the coolest Carrot. But hey, I don't know how long you could be cool, man. It's time to heat up, man. I don't know what you got to do if you're the coolest carrot, but now it's time to heat it up, because right now the action is heated up, as we can get a nice overview of Thomas HD and that trio who had a decent start. They pulled zone, and I really believe, and I'll get into it if we have an opportunity, I really believe that shifting that landing from Dirty Docks to retail rope is really affecting that Thomas HD trio.
Yeah, it makes it a little tough to be able to get out when you're used to a certain circumstance, but you can see utility being used as players will jockey position here on the 4th zone, and positioning in this zone is so important because the change for the next zone, the 5th zone, will then be our half in, half out. What that means is the new safe area will kind of cut around the outside, so players, rather than heading central like you want to for the first 3 zones, will now crowd around the outside for the hopes of pulling that half in, half out 5th zone, so then they'll get priority on the moving zones that happen afterwards. So zones 6 through 9 will completely leave the safe area for the new zone, and that causes everyone to be forced to rotate, and that's where high ground ends up being so important.
Here is our wild card trio who were able to get into with a very intense, super hype. All the metaphors in the world will not explain how intense that situation is. It is Rojo's trio, and they're doing really well here in the grand final stage, sitting at 10th place, and they pick up a big knock on Hen. And Hen, Puchik, and Deceptos were one of those trios that a lot of people were picking as a dark horse. So this is going to be a big impact elimination, not only for Dave just on the leaderboard, but for Rojo's trio for just to have that confidence of knowing that they can compete. And that just what's really wild here about that the 33rd team can still walk away with the grand championship at the end of the day. Deceptos, Puchik, and Hen. And we all know, just like Mongrel's importance to that trio, Hen is super important to Deceptos and Puchik. And Puchik goes down.
Puchik goes down again. Smash Dave, again, you talked about it. Rojo, the World Cup duos runner up there with Wolfies, now representing Smash Esports. You can see SB Nate and then Bobo of Exalti as well. They came up clutch in the final moments yesterday, but now putting good pressure, and we talked about it. Hey, what's the difference between the 1st and the 33rd team in the finals? Well, they all get to play all 12 games, and it's a fresh slate once you get there. So all that matters is you got invited to the dance, and right now these guys have been very much so capitalizing on the opportunities and finding some great rifle shots. The angles here from these guys almost completely covered, and notice how they have the metal full belt cones above them, cutting down the angle on anybody else who might be or might even thinking about throwing shots towards them. So good effort there to convert into 4 points.
It's all about the acute angles right there. Everything matters. Every moment matters. Every knock matters. Every confirmation and elim matters. This is what the intensity is of Fortnite competitive play, especially on the grand final stage. And some people will be able to step up to that pressure, and they're going to be able to play outside of their minds, and we're all going to get hyped and say, what are you doing? What did you eat for breakfast? How are you doing this? Or some of them are just going to be able to fold. But that doesn't matter. I mean, you made it this far. You have an opportunity to build off of this, to build that confidence. And that is what's so amazing about this, is that if you think about the EU region entirety, it's probably one of the most dense regions in the Fortnite competitive scene.
Oh, it's absolutely the most tense. The most players competing, especially at the highest level when you're going through the most tournament participation. And you've seen time and time again that some of the plays that come out of this region and the gun skill and the level of mechanics are utterly ridiculous at times. Might not have the most discipline, but what does discipline matter when you can beat the person who's across from you 9 times out of 10? And right now you can see Clement and Floki Nakos were able to pick up an elimination onto Vadil and Fastroki's trio. So going to be able to snake away a point there and also avoid Storm Surge for that 5th zone threshold. It is 50 players, so we're right at that line. We are also at the line where placement points are about to begin to be doled out. So once we get into the top 17, every single trio that falls will then be 1 more point. Then once you're into the top 3, there's an additional 11 points on the line. 3rd gets +2, 2nd gets +4, and then the Victor Royale walks away with a big old +5 and whatever eliminations they can rack up at the end. And right now, we're seeing, again, good discipline here from the French trio, finding an angle, being able to put pressure. And they pulled priority on this zone here. You can see their bottom right-hand corner. They have the white line, and everyone else is going to have to pass them if they want to head to safety. And they're going to begin to try and head upwards a little bit. Nope, they open that up, and they see, never mind, somebody's directly above us. We're going to stay on this low ground.
And here we are going into full storm rotations now. 6, 7, 8 are going to be outside of the storm every time this trio gets into the safe zone. And then 9 is the ultimate closing zone. We'll go all the way down to the entire screen is filled purple. But Nakos gets a big knock on Yanis on the same layers there as they're going to make their full rotation. That is the power of having priority. You could kind of look back and they get X-Squeeze as well. So they're going to trade out when Nakos is going to go down, pick up the quick heal. That's a great benefit as well, being on the front side of the storm. You have the time to res, and they're going to barely get that res off. And now we're going to take a look at the chaos. You're going to have the low ground form up. You're going to have the mid ground form up. And of course, who is at height is always the question that everybody wants to know, because they're going to have the power position here to walk away with the victory royale. Savage goes down, gets fully confirmed in the feed. All the names are going to start lighting up here for the moment here, Sundown.
Yeah, now we have our placement points beginning to get doled out, and they're going to come in very quickly. 2 already ticking over as we're into our top 15. 35 players remaining, but a good execution there coming through from Nakos and Co to get back to a strong 3. Now they're going to about face and start spraying shots. Andalix will also get confirmed by Blackie, so that's our second place team being taken down. We talked about Rojo and Co, but they will be no mo there as he gets taken out. However, Mongro, Tayson, Mitro, if the #1 team doesn't fall and gets high ground every game, this is going to be a race for second as they open up match number 6, just like they closed the rest of the day yesterday, controlling high ground and raining down the AR shots with nary a contestant in sight. So we're going to hop on board here with the French trio, who's continuing to work on the low ground. 4 eliminations so far. Nakos has the legendary pump as well as the bandage cannon, so good opportunity to potentially execute here in the late game and make some plays.
CRR stuff, Wolfies does get knocked, but it is an opportunity, though, for at least Clement, Floki, and Nakos to kind of close the gap as much as possible. Yes, already metaphorically as well. On top of the leaderboard is Mongrel, and on height is this game, as Nakos does pick up an Elan right then and there. It's so important, though. We've been seeing the playstyle in the EU region to overcome height at a moment's notice. We've been seeing a lot of low ground victory royales. The question is can Mongrels hold on? And Kenzo is actually going for height, and it's Cammy. 2 teams are competing from height, and it's going to be Tayson that's going to be left on alone. And you mentioned Mongrel going down. That is the ultimate closer for that trio. Mitro and Tayson are going to have to do it as Cammy and Raxo take control of height, as you're seeing on your bottom right. On the top right is going to be the low ground. And Clement, and man, look at them. They're getting so many elims right now. Already with 7, Sundown.
And there's plenty more on the board. They're also getting the placement points ticking over. Top 4 with 9 players remaining. But all of a sudden, Clement is all alone. He's going to turn around and pick up CRR. It's going to be a 1v3. He finds a second right away. That was Mitro for the full confirm, but he goes down in 3rd. Raxo up on the high ground, running it out now, and the challenge comes up from Kinzo, and he gets swatted down. Raxo and Gamma Gaming Cammy will close that one out. 9 eliminations and 34 points from the Victory Royale. Match 6 closes out there.
In a blink of an eye, before you know it, a victory royale is accrued by Raxo and Co. We're going to need the breakdown from Zeke, Shayo, and Reese. What you got for us, fellas?
What we got, Sancho, is day 2. And we have even more day 2 teams. This is what we were talking about at the very beginning of this show. Cammy, Artur, I cannot believe they find themselves the Victory Royale. Just for clarity, they came in and ended day 1